Hi, Brother James. This is Lindsay Moeller, and this is my journal report. And I'm just going to give a little synopsis of week by week, kind of what happened. So the journal started with week one, the introduction lesson, and then I reflected on watching the interactive Prezi presentation on the big picture of what this class was and how it was structured and why it was structured that way. The other important thing from that week was getting all the accounts set up that I would need to be able to collaborate with my teammates in the upcoming weeks. So then in lesson one, we were to present our elevator pitch that explained our idea for the app, and the problem it solved and the people who'd be using it, how the code topics would be used, all that. So I pitched a time tracking app that almost got developed by our team, but then we went another way, which was great. This was the first time that I had seen some of these words, like JSON and AJAX and DOM. So I was a little bit intimidated trying to determine how they were going to be used. And I felt pretty lost at that point. Then in lesson two, that was the first week of actually meeting with our teams, which I think there was 4 of us, 4 out of 6 present, and we set a schedule, discussed everybody's idea, and then I gave my first teaching presentation on JSON. And I was super overwhelmed trying to understand what JSON did and how the information was written to and read from a file. And I think that that week just produced more questions than it did understanding. So then lesson 3, I gave a teaching presentation on DOM, which ended up being probably my favorite topic of all. Learned about how it treated HTML as a tree structure of objects that then could create dynamic HTML. And an interesting thing from that week was that one of the team members presented on JavaScript, and we had similar code that was doing similar things, which at the time I didn't understand, but now realize that it's just that in using DOM, JavaScript is what creates the dynamic HTML. So then lessons 4 through 6, I presented on AJAX and then again on animations. And when I was researching and learning about AJAX, I thought it was the hardest topic of all. I didn't get it at all. I was really frustrated with that too, but got some basic understanding. And then the next week I taught CSS3 animations, which I really enjoyed as well. And that one I ended up just implementing directly into my DOM example, and I really thought the result of that was cool. I played around with changing colors and movement, and probably could have spent a lot of time on that one. And then week 7, I went back to learning and trying to master AJAX, and spent the next 2 weeks going through the AJAX code and examples and all of that. And then later, when we got to building our team app, because I'd spent so much time on AJAX, I was the one who ended up implementing the AJAX as the transitions between our questions, and in the end, it didn't end up being the hardest topic for me. So in lessons 7 and 8, this was a huge frustration for me. I had finished my 4 teaching presentations and was ready to just kind of add to what I had learned. But that first week, I waited around in our meeting hangout, and nobody ever showed up, and there was no communication saying that no one was coming. And so at that point, our team got really disjointed, and it caused me a lot of stress because I knew we were going to have to start building our app soon, and I figured we'd have to rely on each other a lot at that point. And so, but we also had narrowed down our idea of what we were going to do, what kind of project or app we were going to build. So thinking about how to implement those topics, those 2 weeks were just really stressful. I didn't feel like anybody was giving 100%. So then in lessons 9 and 10, I sort of just began to take leadership, and figured those who were present were willing to work. And so we narrowed down the idea of the app that we wanted to develop, and we wrote down how we were going to implement each of the topics. And then we also determined that we thought kind of working through it all together was better than just assigning everybody pieces. especially because there were some people who still hadn't figured out their topics or their portfolios yet. Some people still needed some help, and so even though we knew how we wanted to implement each topic, um, we just sort of stopped there. We didn't give it. Nobody kind of got assignments, and so I that week took the initiative, even though I wasn't really sure of myself or what I could do, but my anxiety kind of got the best of me, and so I just started building our app just so that we had something. So I did the HTML and JavaScript Advanced and DOM, and then even just a little bit of CSS animations. And I just thought we needed to start somewhere rather than just kind of talking and going in circles. So I just went for it. And I think getting over that initial hurdle and just getting something that we could build off of was relieving for all of us. And from there, it kind of gave our team some momentum. And those who had consistently been engaged stepped up and took on some of the work. And we just started to collaborate more consistently than we had. And another member who hadn't been there for a bit, started showing up. And it was just kind of fun to see it all come together and not have that frustration there. So then in weeks 11 and 12, we pretty much had everything done besides the Ajax to switch between the pages, besides the use for JSON, and then we hadn't really done a whole lot of CSS. And so those last 2 weeks, our group started meeting twice a week, and we really just banded together to get through some of the harder things. Like I said, I was assigned to figure out the Ajax transitions between pages, and though it was terrifying, I jumped in. Oh, sorry, I thought I needed to sneeze. Jumped into it and was actually able to figure it out pretty quickly. And that really took our app to the next level then, because we had multiple pages, could go through it. It just was good. And then another teammate figured out the JSON and the scoring, and we just had basically a functioning app, which I think all of us were a little bit skeptical at first. But by the time we got to the very last week, that's where the JSON and CSS were added. And by the time we got there, we were back in regular communication. We were kind of backing each other up with where and when we needed it. And it was just my favorite weeks of the whole semester, because everything that we'd struggled with didn't matter anymore, because where one person had a weakness, somebody else was able to step up and move us forward. And I'm sure I came across a bit bossy there towards the end, but I think it actually ended up helping us to have somebody step up and give our team leadership and structure and ultimately accountability. Um, I don't think our group's experience was necessarily unique. I think there's an ebb and flow to group work, that things go well and then things don't go well, but what sets you apart is learning to recognize when they aren't going well and being able to pull everyone back together and regroup and refocus, and then just picking up the slack for each other when it's needed. I don't think any one person was responsible for our team's success, and I don't think any one person was responsible when we weren't performing our best. And in the end, we came together and we did the best that we could. And though there's plenty of room for improvement, I'm super proud of what we came up with in the time that we had. And so thanks for watching, and thanks, Brother James, for your suggestions and guidance throughout the semester. What could have been a really hard class, it actually ended up being really fun and produced more knowledge than probably any other class I've taken. So really enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.